What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. I'm really excited to be discussing Sean Rhyan today. Had the opportunity to watch a lot of his film, really to take a deep dive in him for the first time, and I could not be more excited about Sean Rhyan as a prospect. Now, before we get there, you might be wondering, all right, Andy, we did the first two first round picks, like where's Christian Watson? Well, as I was rewatching Christian Watson and doing that deep dive, I quickly realized that my initial thoughts on Christian Watson were basically the exact same. So I could do another 25-minute video breaking down the same thing that I did with Christian Watson prior to the draft. But the truth is, I feel the exact same about him post-draft as I did pre-draft. So if you want that Christian Watson breakdown, it is out there. You can go and check it out. It was, I want to say like a week and a half, 2 weeks maybe before the draft. I'll try to pin it if I can. But overall, that evaluation ended up exactly the same. So make sure to check that one out. So that deep dive is already out there. It just happened prior to the draft. So we're going to move on to Sean Rhyan today. And like I said, I could not be more excited about breaking down his tape with you because I think he is a very, very fun player to break down. Now, he is a junior out of UCLA, played primarily left tackle at UCLA. We'll discuss in a bit where I see him playing with the Packers and long term. 6'4.5", 321 pounds. There was some uniqueness to his age. From what I can tell, he turns 22 in September. The Packers have him listed as 21 years old currently. There were some other reports out there. I know Dane Brugler in his draft guide had him at age 23. So the ages have been a little bit all over the place, but it looks like he is in fact 21 years old and will turn 22 in September, which basically matches up with him being, a junior out of UCLA, coming out of school early. He was a true junior, not a redshirt junior. So I believe he will be 22 in September, which is great. You want that developmental upside, and only being 21 years old at this point with 3 years of starting left tackle at UCLA is a really nice feather to have in your cap. So again, he is a young, talented individual from an athletic standpoint. As a guard, he tested out in the 93rd percentile for guards, 78th percentile in height, 80th percentile for weight, 68th percentile in the 40-yard dash, 86th percentile in the 10-yard split, 98th in vert, 93rd in broad, 52nd in the short shuttle, and 90th in the three cone. The only thing that he even remotely tested below average in was the bench press, where he only put up 21 reps at the combine. So that's the only question mark, but overall, a highly athletic guard, again, 93rd percentile athlete at the position. So you're getting a young, talented guard at, if he plays tackle, a premium position. Even if not, internal offensive linemen are becoming more and more important year by year. So really like that for Sean Rhyan and what he could potentially bring to the table for Green Bay. But that's just the athletic side. When I turned on the tape, I was even more impressed with what he brought to the table. Now, there's some things he's going to have to work on, and we'll get to the negatives eventually. But my favorite aspect of Ryan's game is he is consistently calm and under control, and especially when he is engaged. Like, he gets engaged with a defender, and it's just like he's on autopilot. There's no concern. There's no panic. There's no anything. It just feels like he is in complete control of that situation. It's incredibly consistent. It's repeatable. Now, I'm not an offensive line coach, so I can't tell you if he's going to have to change up some of his footwork and some of those sort of things. But in college, he had a very repeatable process. Again, he was very consistent with it. He felt very comfortable doing it. And it was just, like I said, like he was on autopilot. And I loved how calm and confident and under control that he was at left tackle, even though that may not be his ultimate home in the NFL. That's the hardest position to play on the offensive line. And he held it, with confidence and in just overall demeanor. Like, was very impressed. But there's certain players sometimes where you almost just get bored watching them because it's just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. That was Sean Rhyan at times. Like, I felt like I was watching the same play over and over and over, and defenders really had a difficulty in trying to figure out how to attack him. Oregon was really the only team that had any success on the games that I watched. Outside of that, it was just like he was like, all right, I'm going to shut you down. I'm going to shut you down. I'm going to shut you down. And again, it was almost boring to watch at times. And along with that, the other thing that he just does a really great job of is keeping his body consistently between the defender and whoever has the ball, whether that's the quarterback, whether that's the running back. And it's not always perfect, right? And whether you're a quarterback and you have to play, off script, or you're a receiver and you have to, go up and get the ball when the ball's not perfectly thrown, I think one of the really undervalued aspects of a player is just simply getting the job done, or maybe helping out a teammate when things just go not according to plan. And that's, again, one of my favorite aspects of his game is it's not always picture perfect. It's not always beautiful. It's not always exactly what you're expecting. It's not always teaching tape, but he finds a way to get the job done. And at the end of the day, that's still the most important aspect of your job, is getting it done and playing it at a high level. And that's what you saw out of Sean Rhyan. Again, I know there's some technique things that he's going to be able to clean up and get better at from an NFL level, but he's consistently competitive and he's consistently finding a way to stay between whoever has the ball on his side and the defender away from him. And we can get all caught up in the technique and the athleticism and all those sort of things. But at the end of the day, if you get the job done, who the heck cares about the other stuff? And that's really how I felt far more often than not with Sean Rhyan. And speaking of which, he only allowed 9 hurries in 451 pass block attempts this past season, which again just gives you an idea of how consistent he was in pass protection. And he only allowed 2 sacks in his entire career. In his 3 years at UCLA, only 2 sacks. And again, only 9 hurries, 9 pressures in 451 pass block attempts this past season. So again, you're now taking really good tape, consistent tape, with high-end athleticism, youth, played left tackle in college, and now you're putting production behind it or statistics behind it. There's just not a ton that he's lacking in that regards. The other thing I'll say is he very rarely gets beat badly. In fact, I can think of maybe 1 to 2 plays in the games that I watched where he was maybe, like, you could maybe consider that he was beat badly. It just doesn't happen. He very rarely is just like, going in the wrong, direction and allowing someone to come inside quick. Like, he's just not making catastrophic mistakes. And if you're not making those mistakes, you're giving yourself a chance, again, to anchor and to stay between the ball carrier or the quarterback and your defender. And that's what he did. He wasn't getting beat quick. And that's the worst thing you can have as a quarterback or a ball carrier, right? It's just somebody getting beat right away and you having to immediately change your plan of attack or just go to the ground or whatever. Like, he just didn't get beat clean. It was so rare. So again, it just shows you the consistency that he's able to play with. I love how he consistently and has a quick latch on to opposing defenders. Like, he gets his hands on them and he will win that battle. And that's what I talked about of, like, staying engaged, especially in pass protection. But he has massive hands, like just massive, massive hands. So when he gets his hands on you and he controls you, like, it's game over. Like, you're not beating him. You're not disengaging from him. So, those big mitts, he's got a wide ass, like, I'll just put it that way. Like, it's just he's a tough offensive lineman to get around. And I think ultimately he's going to be a guard in the NFL, which we'll discuss in a little bit. But man, I really like the player that he, again, put on tape. I like the athleticism. I like the traits. I like all of it. He really does a great job of sustaining blocks and pass protection. Positional versatility is really interesting. So he played left tackle, played a little bit of right tackle. They kind of moved him around a little bit. Ultimately, I think he's a right guard. Could probably play some left guard. Could probably play some right tackle. It sounds like Matt LaFleur is going to give him an option or a potential to maybe play some right tackle and maybe even compete for that job out of camp. I think you could maybe play some left tackle in a pinch. I would love to just see him dominate at right guard long term. To me, that's his long-term position. But I do think he does have some positional versatility. The other thing here is you never really see him get outside of himself. And we kind of discussed it with his overall demeanor and calm and under control. But he's never the guy that's doing too much. And, Trevor Penning's a player who went in the first round that had a chance to talk to Mike Wall a little bit, where it's like the guy's constantly trying to throw the guy to the ground. It's like, all right, like, are you doing that because it's the best for your team? Or are you doing that to try to show that you can throw guys to the ground? And with Ryan, it just seems like he was consistently doing his job without trying to, maul guys and throw them on the ground or play, too hard through the whistle where you're getting penalties. I just liked his overall demeanor, and I just liked the fact that, again, he was doing his job and not trying to do too much, not oversetting, not overcommitting, not trying to, maul somebody 5 yards down the field and making a mistake in the process. He's just, again, very consistent with his process. I will see him play through the whistle, but it's not in an angry or over aggressive way. And, we talk about that, the offensive linemen needing a little bit of, nasty in their game. Well, I watched David Bakhtiari for years dominate. David Bakhtiari is not a nasty blocker at left tackle. Who the heck cares? Like, who the heck cares if they have a nasty demeanor, if, again, they're consistently getting the job done? If you're a technician at your position and you have a repeatable process and you are not getting beat, I don't care if you throw the guy to the ground. And to me, he plays through the whistle. He does his job, but it's not in an angry or over-aggressive way that's going to draw penalties. I really like his demeanor overall. Penalties are an interesting thing. We'll get to one of the negatives with penalties. He had 6 this year, which is a little on the high end, but 12 penalties in 3 years, which is 4 per year. And overall, I would have expected less. He had some trouble with false starts, which we'll get into, but how he plays, you don't see him really be in a position to have to hold or anything like that. So I don't think penalties are going to be a major issue. He had 12 in 3 years, but again, based on his play, I would have expected it to be even less. He will find work. And again, he will find ways to get the job done, even when it's not a perfect situation or scenario. That's just the way he goes about things. He's rarely off balance. He anchors very well, although it's an interesting scenario because there's so many times where he's just winning up front that it's not like he has to reset or re-anchor or anything like that. It's just like he's in his stance, he gets his hands on you, those big mitts, and he's just controlling you. It's not like he has to even re-anchor or anything. And then the other thing is he has a short memory. If and when he actually does get beat, doesn't seem to bother him, and he just goes about his business and gets back to the next play. So you love seeing that as well. Now, from a negative standpoint, his hand placement isn't always consistent. He'll get his hands outside a bit, which could lead to holding calls in the future. It didn't really in college, but you really want to see him get those hands inside and control from inside. If you start getting on the outside of their pads and start moving around, you're going to get called for holding a little bit more often in that scenario. So I think just his overall hand placement can be a bit more consistent. He is going to have to transition to a more pro-ready, pro-style NFL offense. Playing in that Chip Kelly system, it's a little bit of a crackerjack offense, right? It's almost completely shotgun, and, the running game's a little bit different. The passing game's different. So he's definitely going to have to transition to a more NFL-ready offense, which is just going to probably take him a little bit of time. He doesn't get beat often, but when he does, he often gets beat inside. Again, working around the edge is going to be tough against him, so you want to try to set him up with counters and inside moves. Again, doesn't happen a lot, but when he does get beat, it's often inside. You don't see him get beat outside very often at all. He's not the most powerful physical blocker in the world, so if you're looking for a Mauler type on the inside, this is not your guy, but he's consistent enough, and he can get guys to the second level if he needs to, but again, if you're looking for this big, nasty physical blocker, don't really see that being Sean Rhyan. But I'm not really concerned about that. Now, from a athletic standpoint, right, the two things that I guess are a little bit of a question here. That, we talked about the 40-yard time, so 68th percentile. I know Mike Wall will always say hey, show me somebody under a 5-second 40 and you're going to have a really good athlete. So he came short of that, a 5'2", 540, but at 325 pounds, I have no concerns overall about his movement. But the 21 bench press, 21 reps on the bench press, again, I had a chance to talk to Mike Wall about this a little bit as well. And it's not the fact that he, the 21 bench presses is going to affect his game and he's not going to be strong enough or anything like that. But it's just an overall question of work ethic, right? He has, a little bit of shorter arms, and he's a physical player. He's good size, so you would expect him to have a lot more on the bench press. I'm not aware of any injury that he had, but 21 is definitely a little bit low, again, in the 33rd percentile. So it just makes you question his work ethic a little bit. And again, if he can put on more functional strength, then that could make him even a better player, which just shows that maybe he has more room to grow as a player. But again, overall, not super concerned about it, but that was a question that Mike brought up as I was chatting to him about a couple of these offensive linemen. He will get a little waist bendy at times, and again, you want to stay balanced, you want to stay upright, you want to be able to always be blocked. If you're bent over, your eyes aren't up, you have the ability to get off balance and things like that. So it's not a major concern of mine, but you will see it happen every now and again. Definitely could do a better job of staying engaged in run blocking. And what I mean by that is he'll get out on the, he'll get to the second level. He'll start getting his, getting inside of the defender and again, engaging and making sure that they're sealed off. But there are times where defenders are able to disengage from him a little bit easier than they do when he's pass blocking. So it seems when he's pass blocking, he's getting his hands on opposing defenders and not having much issue with them. In run blocking, they seem to be able to disengage a little bit more. So I think that's something that he can continue to work on. As I mentioned, you could argue here that he's maybe lacking a little bit of that nasty demeanor, but I really like the demeanor that he plays with. And again, I go back to David Bakhtiari. I'm not majorly concerned with a player who maybe isn't that mean or nasty. If they're a good player, I don't freaking care what their demeanor is. False starts have been an issue. He had 6 penalties this past year. 4 of them were false starts. And again, you have Aaron Rodgers with that hard count. That's a weapon for him. You don't want an offensive lineman that's consistently jumping when he's going hard count. So that's something that he's going to have to be better at. And then last, from a negative standpoint, is his recovery is not great. So if you do see him get beat, whether it's on the outside or on the inside, it's not like he's a super agile player where he's able to get turned around and recover and block that player. So that's going to be something, again, that he can work on, or just based on his size and traits, it may not be something that he's ever quite great at. To me, he screams right guard. Could he compete at right tackle? Yes. Could he play left guard? Yes. Could he play left tackle in a pinch? Maybe. But to me, he just screams right guard. I think he could easily come in and be Green Bay's best right guard. Like, I legitimately think that. Now, depending on where Elton Jenkins is playing, I guess. But assuming Jenkins moves to right tackle, to me, if everyone's healthy, this has the potential of being Green Bay's best right guard for the foreseeable future. He reminds me a lot of Josh Sitton. And as I was just starting to break down his tape, I wrote down Josh Sitton, and then I went back and compared it athletically, and it is ridiculous how similar the two are athletically as well. Throw on some tape and tell me that you don't see a little bit of Josh Sitton in his game. Now, that is high praise. That's a high bar to set for a rookie player, but again, if Ryan can get anywhere close to what Josh Sitton was as a guard, Green Bay would be in very good hands moving forward. And I'm hesitant to say this because I know Green Bay's had their issues in the 3rd round recently with draft picks, but I do think that Sean Rhyan has the opportunity to sort of break that curse, and I think he can be a long-term right guard for the Packers. Maybe he starts at right tackle this season where Green Bay needs some help there still, but I think Sean Ryan's going to be very much in the conversation for playing time this upcoming season, and would not surprise me if he's the Packers' long-term right guard for the foreseeable future. I legitimately think that he has Pro Bowl potential. Now it's up to him to reach that ceiling and show what he's capable of doing in the NFL. A player I am very excited about after watching his tape. I think they found a real diamond in the rough. Now, I guess it's a 3rd round pick, so I mean, diamond in the rough is a little bit extreme there, but I think they found a really nice player in the 3rd round that's going to be able to help them win football games. I think he is going to be, again, in the conversation for starting even this year, and we'll see what he's able to bring to the table in 2022, starting with rookie minicamp on Friday. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. Always appreciate it. Be right back here tomorrow breaking down that Friday minicamp. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.